Hello, everybody. This is Dan Riley. Last Sunday, the Cardinals bested the Bills thanks to a last-second Hail Mary pass by their young signal caller. That game is going to go down as one of the greatest games of the 2020 NFL season. More importantly, it's an example of how things can turn out for the better when things look absolutely hopeless. However, today I'm revisiting the 1986 AFC Championship game, a game simply referred to by its moniker, The Drive. It's been used by Denver residents to teach their kids the importance of not simply giving up, a lesson the Western world needs to remember nowadays. To understand its significance in terms of the NFL, you have to go back to the beginning. 3 years prior to the game, the Broncos had taken a quarterback named John Elway with their number one pick in the draft. Elway, while talented, hadn't won a bowl game in college, and his first couple of years had been rough ones. Well, both for him and the Broncos, apparently. In 1986, it was do or die for Elway. He had finally led the team to the AFC title game in Cleveland. It was a back-and-forth game with the Broncos stuck on their own 1.5-yard line with just a few minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and they needed a touchdown to force overtime to even have a shot at winning that thing. Apparently, in the huddle, one of Elway's linemen, Keith Bishop, told everyone, "All right, we've got him right where we want him. If everybody does their job, good things are going to happen." Stop and think about this with me for just a second. What on earth gave Bishop the nerve to suggest to his teammates they were going to drive the length of the field to force overtime? That's confidence. That didn't look likely. Apparently, that confidence spread. The Broncos put together a 13-play drive ending with an Elway touchdown pass to force overtime, and yes, the Broncos won on a field goal. That game comes to my mind in any situation where things look absolutely awful. It's a reminder how a never-give-up attitude can help you cope with disaster. And right now, the whole world is dealing with a situation impossible to celebrate at all or see any redeeming qualities in this disaster. This isn't to trivialize the pandemic, but to make a point. Right now, economies are going into the toilet. Absolutely none of us feel safe at all. And we find ourselves feeling like tomorrow isn't going to look so bright. Problem is, that attitude isn't going to fix anything. It's thrown in the towel when things already look awful. When Keith Bishop made that one statement that it wasn't over yet, and reminded his teammates they still had time to do something to win that game, something clicked. It gave everybody hope, regardless of how ridiculous it looked at the time. And they responded. In the time I've been blessed to cover sports here this last decade, I've discussed the dark side of sports most often. But something about the 1986 AFC Championship carries an appeal to it where it needs to be talked about here. A young quarterback who everyone had said really hadn't been that dominant in college to begin with, somehow moved his team 98 yards to tie a game they won to get to the Super Bowl when all seemed lost. And one of his linemen had the nerve to say that it wasn't over. Right now, too many of us feel powerless, I know the feeling, seeing horrible news stories of people dying of COVID and the world economy going in the tank. It's enough to make us want to quit, but in no sense can we afford to. Too much is at stake. When Bishop reminded his teammates they still had time to do something, that they had a guy under center who could put them in position to win that game, it lit a fire in them, and they were able to go out and win it. That gave hope. Badly needed hope, even though it seemed there was no reason to have any. Because quitting wasn't an option. Right now, we've heard news of a vaccine that's allegedly 94% effective against COVID. we forget there may be a light at the end of the tunnel. A brighter tomorrow is possible, even though today looks terrible. Keith Bishop's remarks should come as a reminder you can fight back when things look bleak. For example, here in Michigan, we face a new set of guidelines to stop the spread of COVID. We owe it to ourselves not to quit now and simply stay inside and wear a mask when we go out. Look, the story of that 1986 Broncos team needs to come to mind for us in these dark days. Better days are coming, we just don't know when. All isn't lost. We are not powerless against COVID. Much like the Broncos, we have a chance to decide whether to throw in the towel right now or not. In the end, after all, if everybody does what they need to do to stop the spread of this thing, with apologies to Mr. Bishop, better days are going to happen. This is Dan Riley for Sports Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in, and so long.